Newsmaker Sunday with Fox 10's John
Thanks for joining us on Newsmaker Sunday. I understand and realize that all of you are focused on the primary, but we're going to look ahead for a moment to something that Phoenix voters are going to be dealing with in November of this year. And that would be Proposition 487. And this would completely revamp how we handle pensions in the city of Phoenix for the workers in the city of Phoenix. There's no disputing that even Phoenix's own actuarial tables on this show that the unfunded liabilities of the city's pension equaled $1.5 billion, having dropped to 56% of funding. And the pension costs of the city have risen 40% since 2011, resulting in a 2013 payment of $253 million. Now, for some perspective, back in 2003, that pension payment was $35 million. So these costs have ballooned, and the city now, groups trying to put this on the ballot, are trying to do something about it. Our guest this week on Newsmaker Sunday, you know, on the far left of your screen, City Councilman Sal DiCiccio. He's been an outspoken opponent of some of the stuff that goes on at the city when it comes to pensions and benefits. Tom Simplot, former city councilman, is the co-chair of the committee against Prop 487. Right. Thanks to both of you for being here. I know it's early, but since everybody's working on stuff for the primary, and we're kind of in a stand-down period right now, bringing candidates on the air, we thought maybe we'd look ahead to what's coming in November. And this is a big deal. Why?
Well, I think it's not only a big deal for current employees and retirees. I think it's a really big deal for those who philosophically believe that some sort of pension for our hardworking families at the end of their career is an important thing to have. And that's what we're fighting about here. We're fighting for families.
Sal?
Well, we are fighting for families, but we're fighting for hardworking taxpayer families as well. If you look at what the pension costs have done in the city of Phoenix, from 2003, about $35 million to $253 million today, you're going to start seeing shortages in our police officers. We've already got a crisis in the city of Phoenix. Less and less money is going into the vital services in the city of Phoenix. After-school programs, library hours, police officers on the streets. And you're going to see what the city of Phoenix did this year by raising water fees and taxes on parking meters and senior citizens as well. So what's going to happen if this does not get fixed, less and less services are going to be given to the public, and more money is going to be taken from hardworking taxpayers.
John, can I actually respond to that?
Absolutely.
Because when we talk about adding more to the general fund, it will cost over $350 million to implement this.
Why is that? If we're trying to save,
it will come directly
money
from the general fund,
true.
because retirees will no longer be paying into the current system, and we'll be creating an entirely new system, and we're going to have to pay for these things out of the general fund.
Is this a situation where to save money over the long haul, you've got to spend a little bit up front? Is that safe to say?
It saves money right off the bat.
It saves money.
It clearly does. Matter of fact, if you really believe into this lingo, and Tom and I are friends, but we're going to have a pretty heated debate on this thing.
I thought I would expect nothing less.
Because the taxpayers have just been taken advantage of, and it's been because of these types of things. It's been the justification of this pension system that's really out of whack. You've got individuals in the city of Phoenix. We did a top 50 list, as you know, that shows that 50 individuals at the city of Phoenix, the top 50, will walk away with $183 million. A librarian, the librarian for the city of Phoenix, walked away in cash of $286,000 cash at retirement and $102,000 a year.
This all happened before the voters approved pension reform.
You're talking
just
about
last
you're
year.
talking
and
about
it wouldn't have mattered. That reform
You're
would not
talking
have
about Props 201. And,
Absolutely.
Yes.
But that wouldn't have mattered to that.
The same 50 names keep getting rolled out, and it's a scare tactic. Whereas the real truth is, even though there may be some who have high salaries and therefore high pensions, the fact is the average worker, the average retiree at the city of Phoenix earns less than $29,000 a year with their pension.
Let's use those numbers.
That's hardly being a million.
Let's just say that's true, but it's not, because you've got to look at the people that are in the system now when they're about to retire. The people you're talking about are the ones that are already retired. They were under the old, they were part of the $25 million when it cost.
So were the 50 millionaires.
Hold on.
We're getting
confused.
So what's happening here, Tom and John, and to your listeners here and your viewers, what's happening here is that as they've had escalating compensation costs, you're going to see higher and higher pension costs. But let's use that $30,000 and compare them to the average public.
You're talking about $30,000. Let's make it clear. We're talking about an We're talking about an average for a city worker.
And let's just use that number. Right. The citizen and the public gets $15,000 a year in Social Security. That's pretty much all that they're getting. over here at the city of Phoenix, they're going to get $30,000 in pension benefits for life. If that was the case, it's a lot higher than that. And then $15,000 off Social Security on top of that as well. They get Social Security and a pension. But here's one more thing. The government workers at the city of Phoenix get 2 retirement plans. They get a 401k and a pension. The public generally doesn't know that. They get 2 retirement plans today.
A 401 and a pension.
That's correct.
Okay. Tom,
Now,
go ahead.
We talk about Social Security. Keep in mind, our police and firefighters don't get a Social Security pension.
And they're not part of this initiative.
At all, but they will be impacted because to pay for this implementation, it's going to have to come out of the general fund, and that will therefore impact our police and fire salaries
You're
and
talking
benefit
about this
packages for years to come.
300 something, 380?
353, 360
You think it
million.
will cost the city $350 million to implement this proposition?
I don't, John. That came from the city's own actuarial.
But
Well,
the
By the way,
actuarial,
let's
and
talk
that's
about
a
that.
median
hold on,
number.
the
I've got the
actuarial,
report.
in all fairness, has been assailed by many corners saying that that was an inside job. Those are inside people trying to keep the system as it is.
I guess you can say anything you want about an actuarial, but an actuarial is an actuarial. They're based upon numbers. The 350 was actually the middle of the road.
But they weren't
Keep in
counting
mind,
pension
John,
spiking and some of the other things, though, right?
Well, what's interesting is when we talk about pension spiking, we keep forgetting to talk about what the voters did last year, saving over $600 million over the next 20 years, which, John, will be wiped out with this initiative. So not
Go
only
ahead.
will
No,
we not
I gotta
make
answer this.
not
Okay, go
only
ahead.
will we
Go ahead, Sal.
not only will we not
I've got
save that
his report.
600 million,
How
we will
can
then have
we
to
have
implement
how can
because-
we have 2 reasonable guys who see this so differently, honestly?
Here's why. Because we're working on different ends. My primary job is to protect the taxpayer. It just is. The ones that are opposing this
So
are
is
the
mine.
government unions. Well,
I'm not in a union.
But let's use the report that Tom's
No,
talking
wait,
about.
I'm not in a union. I'm not
No,
getting paid to do
well,
this.
the ones that are opposing this are all the government unions. They're the
I'm
ones
not
that
in
are
a
coming in
union.
actively. Well, you may not be, but
I may not be.
yeah, well, you're
No,
not.
I'm not.
You're not.
Okay, let me-
Okay, but
Go ahead,
let's
Sal.
go through the numbers
Okay.
before. Let's not get sidetracked on things.
Good idea.
Yeah. So if you look at the report that Tom's talking about, this report right here, this is the report that literally outlines, here's what happened to show how that's been gamed for so many years. The report was put together by people part of the COPERS board. It's just basically a board of retirees. There are 9 individuals on the board. 8 of them are direct beneficiaries of the system. There's a clear conflict of interest there. They order a report, taxpayer monies are used on it, and they show all these negative things about the initiative. It wasn't until Councilman Waring and I said, wait a second, that's just not fair. You've got to provide the taxpayers the truth. Then they came back with the truth and showed that over $500 million in savings will be done if we enact
Let me
pension
step
reform.
back for a minute here. Can
And
we
they're right
show,
here in your
can we
report.
show video number 3? I want to show Phoenix police officers in action. We can put it up on the board or however you want to do it. The reason I bring it up, with this initiative, are we only talking about city workers, not police and fire? Is police and fire out of this mix?
John,
on
the direct response to that is if this initiative had been well written, and if there were not inarticulate sections in this initiative, perhaps that would be the case. However, what we have is an implementation that will cost the general fund, which will directly impact our police and fire.
I've
The
got
big
initiative
disagreement,
right here.
again, is whether implementing this prop, if it passes, will cost taxpayers up front. You say yes, you say no.
No, it's absolutely not going
It has to. There's no way to implement it other than spending more money.
Intuitively.
There simply isn't.
Explain why.
Because we're actually ending employer contributions into an existing system. You now no longer have new employees that will pay into that system.
You're talking about into the
Therefore,
pension or the 401k?
into the current pension program. So now we have a pension that's now ended. Now we're going to have to fund that moving forward, but let's put that off to the side. Now we have a 401k type of system where, if you look at the actuarial, and by the way, feel free to hire somebody independent and see what those numbers look like. That gap, 200 million to 450 million,
Didn't
was
Reason look at this?
huge.
Reason
It was
looked at this,
huge.
right?
They
They came in and took a look at it.
Huge gap.
Do you quarrel with Reason's numbers?
I would say any actuarial system, any actuarial company could look at these numbers and come up with different numbers.
Well, that's not
simply
very
how-
helpful to the voter, because
No,
the
it's
voter's
not.
got to know
Well,
what the truth is.
That's why this is so scary.
Well,
I'm not willing to gamble.
Go ahead, Sal.
let's scare the public more. Here are the facts. Right now, we have a broken pension system that's costing taxpayers more and more money. If you want to continue that current system that literally takes more and more money out of people's pockets, out of services that are delivered to the public, and you're going to start seeing higher and higher taxes in the city of Phoenix because it's unsustainable, completely unsustainable, which we've seen. The pension spiking that was supposed to have been fixed cost, and according to their actuary, $19 million a year.
Talk about pension spiking for a moment, what it means.
Well, pension spiking basically means that instead of using your salary as a basis of determining your pension, they throw everything else in there, including the kitchen sink. Well,
unused vacation time, unused sick time, cell
deferred
phone,
compensation.
true
everything.
pension.
So
spiking.
that
Yeah,
then
true
beefs
spiking.
up your final few
Right,
years,
that's right.
which
Yeah.
your
Right.
pension is calculated on.
Right.
So it inflates what your actual salary is.
Yeah,
That's correct,
and
when you're in retirement,
It's an
correct.
abuse of the system is what it is.
You
And it's
agree
just
that
been
that's
over time.
abusive?
Of course, that's why I co-chaired the campaign to end some of the pension spiking. That's why on city council,
Some.
That's why on city council, I then voted to end more pension spiking. And this year, under union contracts, the existing city council voted to enact more.
Can somebody explain, Tom, why, I'll ask you, why in the private sector do we not get this kind of deal? Why don't we get these kinds of allowances and these kinds of benefits?
If
Or
you
your
ask me,
organization.
If you ask me, it would be because the public sector does not pay as well as the private sector. What folks are looking at, and keep in mind, at the city of Phoenix, we're talking about folks who work on cars, work in the parks department. These are not well-paid individuals. So what they're doing is they're working for relatively low wages, knowing that at the end of the game, there's going to be some sort of security for them
And
and
that's
their
always been the
family.
contract for government work. That's kind of
true.
been the social contract
That's true.
with
It
government
is.
workers,
It's a social
right?
contract.
Sal, do you see it differently?
Yeah, completely differently. And they're not based on just me saying it. These are based on numbers that I brought to this meeting here today. So if you look at the average cost per employee, that's totally loaded, everything that's in there, salary, benefits, the whole package. We have over 14,000 employees at the city of Phoenix. The average cost per employee is over $107,000 per person. It's unsustainable.
Is there anything that would be comparable in the private sector?
Well, probably a CEO position somewhere else, you know, for all. You've got
But
14
let's talk about that.
Yeah, let's
Because
go
when
through
you
it.
average these salaries, Sal,
Yeah.
you keep forgetting that we have a CEO. That's the city manager. We have a CFO. We have those level of individuals, and they're making an awful lot of money, as they probably should, given the size of this city.
you agree with that, Sal?
Their retirement skews the numbers.
Yeah, no, it doesn't, because there are only a
Sure
few
it
of
does.
them out there. No, it doesn't. You have over 14,000 employees, a handful of people that are at the top. It can't skew the numbers. If anything, we're skewed.
And
it'd be
yet
skewed
those
at
are the 50
bottom.
that keep getting rolled out. So
Okay.
if we're going to
Well,
talk
let-
about high
let's-
retirement, we have to then acknowledge that
But
we have high-paid
but a
executives.
librarian that Sal gave the example of, that's not exactly, maybe I'm reading it wrong, but the head librarian of the city, is that a high-powered job? Is it?
Look at the salary. I guess you'd have to look at the salary and then compare
It's
it to salaries
pretty darn
of
good. I mean, the
librarians
payout was pretty
in other
substantial.
large cities.
Well, everybody gets a payout at the city of Phoenix. You get to cash in your vacation, your sick leave, your deferred comp. You get a huge payout, plus you get a retirement for life. Most of the people retire right around the age of 50, 55 years old. So they get to start another career, or they're actually going to be working, actually they're going to be getting a pension longer than most of them have worked at the city of Phoenix.
So are we paying them twice?
Well, obviously you're going to end up paying them twice if they end up getting another pension at another organization. But what I did, because I wanted to avoid this back and forth stuff, I brought facts and figures and numbers that were provided by their organization and the city of Phoenix numbers. Here's what you have. You have an average cost per employee, over 14,000 employees, at $107,000 a year. That's expensive. You have compensation costs, you have pension costs that have gone from $35 million a year to $253 million
And the
a year.
taxpayers are on the hook for this.
Right, and the report that Tom helped put together shows that pension spiking contributes $19 million a year in cost, even with the so-called new reform.
Tom, question, are we doing it, you keep hearing different things, but can we look to another city? Are we kind of, as cities go, whether that's good or bad, are we roughly in the ballpark of where other cities are on paying employees and compensation
It
packages?
depends on the job. You can't look at it with a broad brush. If you look at job position by job description, some may be higher, some may be lower. If you look at police or fire, some may be higher, some may be lower.
We're not alone in this. Other cities are going
Absolutely.
through this.
Other cities are experimenting.
Why
with
are
these
we
things.
hearing, before we go to break, why are we hearing about this now? Why did this come to the fore in the last 5 years? Simply because of the recession? It kind of exposed it when revenues
I think
weren't
that's
coming
probably
in?
true. I don't think anybody denies that we had a system that needed to be addressed. We
Yeah, it
needed to
needed
be
to be
fixed.
fixed. It needs to be
But
fixed.
from my position, the voters did that, and the city council has done that. I'm suggesting don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Let the work the voters approved just last year be implemented and save that $600
Sal,
million.
final word before the break.
Mine's even more simple. Give public employees, government employees, the same benefits, the same people that pay their bills, same type of benefits that pay their bills. The average taxpayer doesn't even get close to getting the benefits that we get at the City of Phoenix. Not even close. It's outrageous the way it
We're going
is
to take
right
a break here on Newsmaker Sunday. Tom Simplot, former city councilman, he's opposed to Prop 487, which will be coming up on the November ballot. Sal DiCiccio, city councilman, who is very much in favor of reforming pensions within the City of Phoenix. Back in a moment on Newsmaker Sunday. Welcome back on Newsmaker Sunday. Obviously we're in the midst of heading into the primary, and I know many of you have got your ballots, you're filling them out perhaps even right now. But we're going to look ahead to November because there is something very interesting for the City of Phoenix, and it has implications for other cities not only in the Valley but across the country. This would be Proposition 487, and it would reform the way pensions and benefits are handled in the City of Phoenix. Sal DiCiccio is our guest on Newsmaker Sunday, far left of your screen, city councilman, and very much a proponent of fixing what you see a problem with pensions. Tom Simplot, former city councilman, he's in the group, he co-chairs the group that is against Prop 487. Let me run tape number 5 in the screen behind me. What we're going to see is parking meters in the City of Phoenix. Do you believe that this is a result, Tom, of pension liabilities within the city, that the City Council had to start coming up with ways to bridge that gap? Do you see a nexus there or not?
Oh, I suppose some people can say that. For me, parking meters should also reflect competition with the private sector. So this isn't, for me, this isn't a new issue. We battled this issue 8, 9 years ago and 10 years ago when I first joined the City Council. Parking meter issues are a completely different issue. You can weave it in if you want to, but at the end of the day, public parking facilities compete with the private sector. That's the bigger issue if you want to talk about parking meters.
I'm just wondering, because obviously we've got a shortfall of how much money this year?
It was $38 million.
And you believe that $38 million is directly linked to pension liabilities?
Well, obviously it was. I mean, if you think about it, there was over $20 million, approximately $20 million of the entire deficit was related to pension costs. And that's going to continue to grow.
I don't disagree.
Which we agree on.
Yeah, we agree. There's definitely a pension funding issue.
You just don't think this
is
is
how
a fix.
That's right. Because this fix will end up costing us more from the general fund. That's where we disagree.
Yeah,
we have to be able to fund it, and we have to address that issue.
You just don't buy that.
It's not even close. I've been in the system for too long. Government just will never tell you the truth.
You're saying Tom's lying?
No,
Tom, he's not saying
Tom would never know. Tom and I have been friends for a long time.
What gives? I mean, you can't have it both ways. Either reform is going to cost taxpayers up front. What is it? You say 200, how many million?
It's going to cost more than $350 million.
You say to reform, if this passes, it's going to cost taxpayers
immediately.
$350 million.
Immediately. Changing from one system to another. That's
okay.
Right. That's
you
right.
say
it's
nonsense.
Not true. It's just not true. It stops pension spiking of $19 million a year, $358 million over the life of the next 20 years. It also says that employees get to choose one plan. They can't do both. They can't do pensions and they can't do 401ks. They get to choose one. That savings alone is going to be about $350 million. So if you look at
this was not considered when the actuaries hired by the city looked at this?
Oh no, they kept it out purposely.
They left out what?
They left out all the savings is what they did.
You mean spiking?
Yeah, they kept out the spiking part. They kept out all the major elements of the
So
initiative.
it made it look like it would cost the city money.
But here's what happened.
But you don't believe it does?
No, it doesn't even come close to it. Here's what happened.
How does Tom say it does?
Well, because he's looking at the numbers that the actuary put together for the limited report. It wasn't until Councilman Waring and I said, wait a second, not fair, stop, this is really wrong. If you're using taxpayer money, provide the citizens all the information. And when they,
so this will be vetted in the campaign, I guess.
Yeah, it's going to be vetted.
And John, that's exactly where we do agree. Provide the voters all the information they need to make this decision. After voters approved $600 million worth of changes just last year, after the City Council approved $250 million in pension spiking elimination, after they then renegotiated contracts this year, which you were a part of, we have now saved close to $900 million over the course of the next 20 years. However, when you weave in the $350 million it's going to cost us and you eliminate all that savings, by approving this initiative, you have now eliminated all of those savings and you're going to charge the taxpayers another $350 million over the next 20
My
years.
eyes are starting to glaze
I know,
over.
I'm having trouble.
Glaze over.
I'm having trouble with
That's
this.
absolutely.
Let me bring that back to something that's more reasonable too. If the public believes that the pension system is working, it's the greatest thing. Pension spiking is still going on right now, even with this so-called fix of $19
And we
million
should
a year.
still work on that. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Address the issues as they're uncovered. Absolutely. And we agree
Tom,
on that
you sound
part.
like such a
We
politician
should
today.
always do that.
Hey, look, let me tell you what it is.
Really?
Let's
Go ahead.
talk to the public, and it's something that they understand. When you have a person retiring, a librarian retiring, walking away with $286,000 in cash, and then getting $102,000 a year. Well, let me finish, Tom, please. Let me finish this, because I've got to bring this thing home, too. We had 3 employees at the city of Phoenix walk away with over $1 million.
And what were their titles?
They were firefighters.
What were their titles?
They were firefighters.
Was this the drop program?
But Tom, you can't reasonably say that $1 million in someone's
The drop,
hand.
yes,
You're
you
saying
can.
it's
The
excessive.
drop
It's
program
excessive.
was eliminated.
Hold on,
though.
Tom, just a
I
second.
need to, please allow me to get this. 3 individuals walked away with $1 million in cash. One guy spiked his pension, and then they got a $114,000 a year pension on top of that. So one guy walked away with, he spiked his pension from $96,000 a year to $136,000 a year for life, and retired in his 50s.
John,
That's a lot.
it is a lot. And by the way, you and I
This fixes
don't
that.
disagree
One
on that
quick-
issue. No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
That issue is the drop program. We can talk about that all day
Okay,
long.
one more thing.
But that's legislative,
If
not
this
this.
passes, you say it will affect fire and police
Absolutely.
now.
It'll
You
impact
say
the general
not.
fund.
Not even close.
Not even
It'll
close.
impact the
Okay,
general
I've got to
fund.
take a break. We'll
Yeah.
hit it. We'll hit it on the way back on Newsmaker Sunday. Talking about Prop 487. You will be voting on it in November if you live in the city of Phoenix. Back in a moment. Welcome back to Newsmaker Sunday. I know you're right in the middle of thinking about the primary if you're voting. For the city of Phoenix, though, folks who live there, Proposition 487 will be on the ballot in November, and you will be voting on this, and this has to do with overhauling pensions and benefits for city workers. The thought is that the city of Phoenix is really overextended in this area, and it needs to be reined in. Sal DiCiccio, city councilman who's fought this, says the pensions and the benefits are out of control. Tom Simplot, former city councilman, now in private business, who was a co-chair of the group against 487. Could you go out there and say, let's do an initiative that will only affect employees beginning January 1? Anybody hired January 1 and after, it will affect them. You quarrel with the fact that it'll affect employees now.
Right.
You quarrel with that.
Well,
You don't like
and
the
I
idea.
also quarrel with simply the language in the initiative itself. I think it's way overbroad.
Now you
it's
say,
going to cost taxpayers money.
Sal, you say that you couldn't get to savings without attacking current employees.
Well, no, it's not attacking current
I don't mean
employees.
attacking
Yeah.
physically. I'm saying going after some of those benefits.
What this does is it says all new employees at the city of Phoenix go to a 401k. Current employees can't have 2 retirement plans. They can't have a pension and a 401k. They have to choose which one. It just gives the employees the opportunity
Is
to make
it
that
fair
choice.
to do that to somebody who signed up for both when they signed on, to then pull the rug out from under them in the middle of
You're
it?
not pulling the rug. They get to keep what they got. They get to keep what they got going
But going
forward. They just
forward,
don't
they
get
have to
any
change it.
additional. Right, they have to change it going forward.
They have to streamline and go
Yeah,
to
it
one
ju-
or the other.
And it's got to be fair. You see, the public didn't buy into the system. They just didn't buy into it. It was just changed and gamed over the years by the politicians. It was gamed by everybody that were beneficiaries of the system. So what ended up happening is you had a runaway pension system. Now you've got to correct it and bring it to the level of fairness.
And Tom, you agree it needs to be corrected. You just don't like the fix.
I agree we fixed it, and we need to see how that plays out. What Sal and other folks are suggesting is we throw the baby out with the bathwater after the voters have already voted on pension reform. This
Which
is
was
pension
200 and 201,
That's
voted
right.
on in last year.
Just a year ago. Now we're talking about pension elimination and putting in a 401k sort of program. What I'm saying is we passed pension reform. The voters did. Let it play out. We
Sal,
will save $600 million over the next 20 years by doing that.
Go ahead.
Yeah, pension reform showed
Got
in
about
this year's
15
budget,
seconds.
and it's going to show next year too. We had a $38 million budget deficit because of pensions. It didn't fix it. What this does is it fixes it. It moved it incrementally forward. It's still $19 million in pension spiking in this year's budget alone.
So you're saying you still don't think it's gone far enough?
Well, it just hasn't done anything to fix it, really. Just minor stuff.
Tom Simplot, Sal DiCiccio, I hope you guys come back. We'll have you back
We will.
before. Will we
Thanks,
do
Tom.
it again? We'll
Absolutely.
do it again before the election
Absolutely. Thanks,
in
John.
November. Good to see you. Appreciate it. Sal, thank you.
Thanks, buddy.
And we'll see you next week on Newsmaker Sunday. Thanks for being with us.